Hello, welcome to another Sonic Lab presentation. We've got Luke here from Modal Electronics, who are just down the road in Bristol, and they've got a little treat for us because we've got a brand new addition to the Craft family, right?
Yes, we have. I brought the Craft Rhythm down. We're announcing it, well, today, I suppose, with this video. It's a Drumpler, got 8 channels, feed your own samples in, manipulate them, filter, pitch, manipulation, all sorts of fun.
So there's essentially a bunch of sample RAM in here.
Yep.
8 channons of.
8 channels.
Are they discrete channels, or is it a stereo output? Or
so the sample in 44.1 16-bit mono samples.
Right.
You can have up to 64, depending on how quickly you fill up your sample memory.
Right.
And then you've got up to 8 discrete channels within that, and you, depending on what you have enabled, you might lose some polyphony, but it will still.
Okay, so we're starting with 8, and then I guess there's limited DSP, but it's the same Craft kind of format. So it's a kit DIY, snap together type of affair, right?
Yeah, comes flat and clip it all together. And it's the same sort of idea. You connect your USB cable and you can send MIDI to and from a Craft app, companion app, but you can still obviously control everything on the panel itself.
Right. Okay. So how much memory is there?
We're still sorting out the final specs, but it will be around 15 megs internal.
Okay.
We're trying to work out still what the maximum lengths are.
Right.
But there is a plan to be able to put longer samples in.
So at the moment, it just sort of divides them up into 64 equal slots, and or thereabouts. So yeah.
Well, you can do it now, but we're just shoring it up.
We should also point out that this is kind of a prototype, so some of the features you see here and the actual design of it might be slightly different when it comes to finally come to market. But
so this is the first hardware prototype. We know we're changing the UI. We just don't have it here.
So behind us, we've also got the display of, that's the Craft Rhythm app for OS X.
Yep.
It will also run on iPad. We haven't got it up on this iPad particularly at the moment, but it will be. We'll show it in a bit.
Yeah,
and there's also one for Android as well, right?
Yeah, Android and iPhone and Windows PCs as well.
Well, let's take a listen. Let's see what have you got to play us.
Cool. So I've got a little demo put together with just Craft Synth and a couple of layers of this. Figured we can just go through that and show off a few of the features as we go.
I suppose we should see, because you've got another screen there where we've got Ableton Live, which is running a couple of these tracks that you put in together using Craft Synth as well, right? So there's a few.
Sure, there's just a few channels, nothing too intensive.
But you're clocking Ableton Live from the Craft Rhythm.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's coming out
all the timing's coming from the rhythm, so you can use that as a master clock.
Okay,
Craft app will forward that onto any connected Craft synths, etc. as well. Which is pretty great.
So if you switch back to the editor and we can just have a look and see what happens when you hit go. We're looking at the moment, that's the sort of grid editor. I presume there's just it's 16 steps, right?
Yeah, 16 steps, 8 rows. And we've also got the parameter editor, so you can edit each individual channel of your kit.
Oh, there's a filter in there. Is that the same as the Craft Synth filter?
Yes. Yeah, it's exactly the same filter we ported it across.
Okay. Well, let's see what you got then.
All right.
So you're in all mode, which means what you're doing is editing all of the...
Yeah, so everything on this page, or even on the front panel, will be controlling every channel at once. So you can kind of use it as a global effect.
Right.
And you can change all of your envelopes, front panel, tighten everything up.
So you can get it glitch and itty-bitty.
Get it itty-bitty, you can slam the pitch down and get some real crunch if you want. You've got live input on the front panel.
Oh, so what you're doing is...
If I switch back to this, so
you've added some extra steps. Right.
So you can live input, and that works on the app as well. It will quantize it to the nearest step. I'll get rid of that pitch.
Okay, so I mean, this is all communicating over MIDI, presumably. All these kind of commands happening as MIDI controls.
So it's still a class-compliant MIDI device. It's still a MIDI controller, so you get your 4 knobs and you get all of the touch pads will send MIDI. Craft apps can talking over that. So there's a little bit of the sequencer page. Just switch up the pattern.
Oh, so you can store multiple patterns in here as well.
Yeah,
right?
you can actually chain them together. if we go to the chain page, you can do this on the unit as well. May as well show it there. So if you hold the pattern button down and select 2, see the little flashing light?
Yeah.
That's going to move between the 2.
And can the samples and the voice settings be different for each pattern, or is it just the trigger data that gets stored?
So that's the pattern. I think it's easiest to understand this thing in 2 parts. You've got the sample engine and you've got the sequencer. So you've got the sequencer plays the samples, it sends notes to, yeah, sure, sorry. Yeah, so the sample engine is fired off by the sequencer in the same way that it would be by a MIDI note.
Okay, so can you load up kind of different kits?
So you can have a pattern and you can switch the kit on the fly.
Ah, okay.
So you could do different tunings that way. You can sort of sequence more of a song together. And you can do it the other way and get a kit, change the patterns.
Right.
So it's quite flexible. We've kind of built, especially this trigger page and the whole thing around a live performance. We've got fills built in, which you can edit here. So when you trigger those off, it will just substitute that in for the rest of the pattern.
Right.
And then you go back to where you were.
Have you got things like different step length and swing and that sort of stuff?
Yeah. We've got standard sequencer controls, tempo, division, swing, and then we've got a little bit of fun is the grooves.
Okay, so you can load up individual separate grooves.
Yeah. So we've got mostly triplet fields in here at the moment.
We should point out again, this is sort of, it hasn't all been totally voiced.
Yeah. We're still waiting on more content, basically, for it. It's still quite fresh. So a little bit of a tribute to Bristol.
If you had a bit of straight swing to that, what is the...
Sure. Just get that. There we go. Interesting. So this kit is using the same samples as the first one I was playing.
And they're just all tuned.
So I've just all tuned it up and tweaked it and changed all the parameters, just to give you an idea of how much you can change things. So we have standard swing amount. Everyone knows what a swing control does.
Not enough too much, basically, yeah.
And then we've got these kind of moving triplety kind of fills, which are better at a slower tempo. You can kind of build, if you use a sparse groove, you can make things that have quite odd timing. It's quite good for glitchy stuff.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
So you've got a certain amount of RAM in here. Is it going to be coming with a set of sounds? I mean, is there going to be...
For sure. They're still not finalised. We've got a few in, but I think it's going to come full with audio.
So getting your own sounds in and out of it, I mean, what's the process for that?
It's drag and drop, which we're pretty proud of. With the app, this is the sample management page.
So that's your 64 slots, effectively.
Yeah. And you can see there the ones that are free, the ones that are not.
Yeah.
So you know whether you're overwriting, whether you're not. And
a synth note.
Yeah, absolutely. Drag it over to the slot, drop it in, send it to the craft, ready to go. And you can actually use this to audition the samples that are on there.
All right, okay, and this is the same for the iPad thing as well.
This is the same for the iPad. So if we switch over now, I can.
Oh yeah, well why don't we have a look and see what's going on the iPad? Yeah, great idea. So we got it now running on the iPad, and it was literally just plug and play, really. Wasn't it?
Yeah. Everything I'm using is stored on the rhythm, so we've just been able to put it across.
So the editor knows the current state of the machine, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Keeps all that in check. So we
loaded that sample in.
Yeah.
So can we now incorporate that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a slightly different pattern. We've got, these are some work in progress. We've been sampling the 002, 008, making some drum sounds with those.
Right, okay.
And that's going to be one of the sample packs, which should be a lot of fun. So if we go to the pattern page, you see we've got our beat here. We've got an empty slot on 8.
Okay.
If we want to add that synth patch in, we can go to the kit page, edit track 8.
Yep.
And then it was sample 57 that we put in. We can preview that just so you know what you're doing. And then just drop it in. Or just, why not? All the way.
And then presumably we can filter that and...
Yeah, and we can just solo it while we're having a look at that. tweak the envelope so it's a little bit less clicky, or sort of tighten it all up, open that all up, and then we've got the nice resonant sing-songy filter from the synth.
So are there any other parameters, like any way that you can modulate those, or any LFOs or any internal effects or anything like that we can add?
Sure. I mean, the main one, I've got to been just using the all mode, but we have the 3 different pitch modes.
Okay.
At the bottom here, depending on what you're trying to pitch. So we've got
so that's just a transpose type of thing.
That's a speed mode, so it's playback speed, so the sample will get shorter if it's higher and lower. If you want to keep that in sync with your beat, there's a shift mode.
That's like a kind of stretching or slicing.
It's a real-time pitch shift.
Okay.
And that one has an envelope, which you can make sound much less annoying than that with a bit more talent.
Okay, and what's the middle one?
Middle one, time stretch. That will sound a little bit odd with this sample, but if you put a longer sample in, you can then sort of lock that to a number of steps.
So you can have it stretched to fit.
So of the 16 steps in the sequence, this is how many steps I want to stretch that out to.
So does that come at any cost? Because I mean, I imagine that's using a bit more DSP than just regular sample playback.
Yes, so there's a little box down the bottom here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see that on the camera.
Yeah.
But that gives you an update of how much polyphony you have at any one time.
Right.
So if I go to all and I enable, we've now got 4.
So the pitch modes will sacrifice the voice.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's the one downside.
Okay, so I mean, this is now. In terms of ins and out, we've got headphone out and stereo out. So it's a.
They're both stereo.
They're both stereo.
One line, one headphones.
Right. Okay. And you can pan the voices. Does that mean?
Yeah. We've got the mixer control there. Everything's panable, so it's mono in, stereo out.
Right. Okay. And I mean, when and how much is this going to be, and when's it going to be available? Do you think?
All very much TBC at the moment. We've got a little bit more time before this is coming out, so we can sort of finesse some of the features, etc.
So I'm imagining you're probably going to aim for trying to get it out before Christmas, right?
I should think so.
Right. Okay. And we should point out that it's very much a kind of pre-production presentation. So, like we say, you were saying that the way it looks is going to be slightly different. Some of the silk.
Yeah, we've changed the silk screens, changed the UI.
I'm liking the orange and black vibe, though. That's got a nice
it's growing on me.
Luke, thank you very much for coming in and showing us. We look forward to seeing more of this, and I'm presumably are there going to be more craft series planned?
Oh yes. There's plenty more on the way.
That's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.